good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Um, Thank you for tuning in with us. Um,
And I'm here with my beautiful co host, Dell.
and I'm here with the mayor.
Whoops, forgot to turn on my phone. Well, as you see, my camera's off. I had a small accident today and got horribly disfigured. So I didn't want to shock you right away with how bad I look. But here we go.
He's got to clean up of that beard.
The new me. Thought it was about time to not look like a homeless bum anymore. Oh, so I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. We are happy to be here with you, and how many ever we are here, and I hope a lot more pop in and here have our little talk tonight. Our discussion tonight is going to be on UFOs and the Barney and Betty Hill incident, and Dell's going to start it out with the first sighting.
Okay, first I got to take off my tinfoil hat, though, because it's baking my brain.
Making my head sweat.
I know my head was starting to sweat, too. I was like, oh, goodness. Okay. So,
Yes, Carlisle, that is the real me. Not Nobody's seen this face like this in a long time.
Okay, so on June 27th, or 24th, correction, 1947, a private pilot, Kenneth Arnold, saw what he described as a string of 9 lights, shiny, unidentified flying objects, flying past Mount Rainier at the speeds that he could only estimate to be at least 1,200 miles per hour. This was the first post-World War II sighting in the United States that garnered nationwide news coverage, and that is credited with being the first of the modern era of UFO sightings, including numerous reported sightings over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Arnold's description of the objects also led to the press quickly coining the term flying saucer and a flying disc as popular description terms for UFO. So again, on June 24th, 1947, Arnold was flying from Chehalis, Washington to Yakima, Washington in a Cal Air A2 on a business trip. He made a brief detour after learning of a $5,000 reward, which would be equivalent to $70,000 today, for the discovery of a U.S. Marine Corps C-46 transport airplane that had crashed near Mount Rainier. The skies were completely clear, and there was a mild wind. A few minutes before 3 o'clock p.m., at about 9,200 feet in altitude and near Mineral, Washington, Arnold had given up the search for the downed airplane and began heading eastward to his destination, when he noticed a bright flashing light similar to sunlight reflecting from a mirror. Worried that he might be dangerously close to another aircraft, he scanned the skies around him, but all that he could detect was DC-4 to his left and behind him about 15 miles. About 30 seconds after seeing the first flash of light, Arnold saw a series of bright flashes in the distance off to the left and north of Mount Rainier, which was then around 20 to 25 miles away. He thought the reflections might be sunlight on his airplane's windows, but a few quick tests rocking his airplane from side to side, moving his sunglasses, rolling down his side window, ruled this out. The reflections came from 9 objects flying in a long chain. For a moment, Arnold thought that they might be a flock of geese, but quickly ruled that out for a number of reasons, including the altitude, the obvious speed of the UFOs. What they're going to call them UFOs.
As they say in Italy, an UFO.
He then thought they might be a new type of jet, looking intently for wings and other appendages, but was surprised to not see any. Objects quickly approached Mount Rainier and then passed in front of it, usually appearing darker in profile against the bright white snowfield that covered the peak, but occasionally still giving off bright light flashes as they flipped around erratically. Arnold reported at times the objects appeared so thin and flat that they were practically invisible. According to Jerome Clark, Arnold had described them as a series of objects with a convex shape, though he later revealed that one of the objects differed from the other 8 by being crescent-shaped. Several years later, Arnold would state that he likened their movement to like saucers skipping on water, without comparing them actual shapes to saucers. But initial quotes from him do indeed have him comparing the shapes to saucers or discs or pie pans or half moon or generally convex and thin. Okay. Arnold had said that the objects were grouped together as Ted Blossier, I know I butchered that name, writes, in a diagonally stepped down formation stretched out over a distance that he later calculated to be 5 miles. Though they were moving on a more or less level horizontal plane, Arnold said the objects weaved from side to side, like the tail of a Chinese kite. They were darting through the valleys and around smaller mountain peaks. They would occasionally flip or bank on their edges in unison as they turned or maneuvered, causing almost blindingly bright or mirror-like flashes of light. The encounter gave him an eerie feeling, but Arnold suspected that he had seen test flights of a new U.S. military aircraft. As the objects passed Mount Rainier, Arnold turned his plane southward on a more or less parallel course, and it was this point that he opened his side window and began observing the objects unobstructed by any glass that might have produced reflections. According to Arnold, the objects did not disappear and continued to move very rapidly southward, continuously moving forward of his position. Curious about their speed, he began to test their rate of passage. He said that they moved from Mount Rainier to Mount Adams, where they faded from view, a distance of about 50 miles in 1 minute and 42 seconds, according to the clock on his instrument panel. When he later had time to calculate, the speed was over 1,700 miles per hour. This was about 3 times faster than any manned aircraft in 1947. Not knowing exactly the distance the objects faded from view, Arnold conservatively rounded this down to 1,200 miles an hour, still faster than any known aircraft. So after he landed, Arnold described what he had saw to a number of pilot friends who suggested that maybe he had seen guided missiles or a new aircraft being secretly developed by the United States Army. Arnold refueled his airplane and continued on his way to an air show in Pendleton, Oregon. He was first interviewed by reporters the next day on June 25th. When he went to the office of the East Oregon in Pendleton, reporters assessed Arnold as a highly credible. When they interviewed him at length, a historian, Mike Dash, wrote, Arnold had the markings of a reliable witness. He was a respected businessman and experienced pilot, and seemed to be neither exaggerating what he had saw nor adding details to his report. He also gave the impression of being a careful observer. These details impressed the newspapermen who interviewed him and lent credibility to his report. On July 4th, 1947, the Oregon Journal in Portland, Oregon, reported receiving a letter from an L.G. Briner of Richland, Washington. It's about 110 miles east of Mount Adams and 140 miles southeast of Mount Rainier. He had wrote that he saw 3 of the strange objects over Richland's flying almost edgewise towards Mount Rainier, about 1/2 an hour before Arnold. He thought that the 3 were part of a larger formation. He indicated that they were traveling at a high speed. He said, I have seen a P-38 appear seemingly on one horizon and then gone to the opposite horizon in no time. But these discs completely were traveling faster than any P-38, which max speed was at 440 miles per hour. No doubt that Mr. Arnold saw them just a few minutes or seconds later, according to their speed. The previous day, Rainier had also spoken to his local newspaper, the Richland, Washington Villager, and was among the first witnesses to suggest extraterrestrial origins. I may believe it, a visitor from another planet, he said. About 60 miles northwest of Richmond, a woman named Ethel Wheelhouse likewise reported sighting several flying moving discs at a frantic speed at around the same time of Arnold's sighting. When the military intelligence began investigating Arnold's sighting in early July, they had found yet another witness from another area, a member of the Washington State Forest Service who had been on a fire watch at a tower in Diamond Gap, about 20 miles south of Yakima, reported seeing flashes at 3 p.m. on the 24th over Mount Rainier, or exactly the same time as Arnold's sighting. The appearance that appeared to move in a straight line, similarly at 3 o'clock, a Sidney Gallagher in Washington State, exact position unspecified, reported seeing 9 shiny discs flash by to the north. Other Seattle area newspapers also reported other sightings of flashing, rapid-moving unknown objects on the same day, but not the same time as Arnold's sighting. Most of these sightings were over Seattle or west of Seattle in a town of submersion either that morning or that night. The primary, uh, the primary is the sighting the sighting, however, occurred 10 days later when a United Airlines crew over Idaho en route to Seattle also spotted 5 to 9 disc-like objects that paced their plane for 10 to 15 minutes before suddenly disappearing. Hold on a second. I have a pop-up thing. Let's see here. On July 7th, 1947, 2 stories came out where Arnold raised the topic of possible alien origins, both as his opinion and those who had written to him. In an Associated Press story, Arnold said that he had received quantities of fan mail eager to help solve the mystery, none of it calling him a screwball. Many of the writers, like a doomsday preacher Arnold spoke of, placed a religious interpretation on his sightings. But others, he said, suggested the discs were visitors from another planet. Arnold added that he had purchased a movie camera, which he would now take with him on every flight, hoping to obtain some kind of video or photo proof of what he had seen. In another story, Arnold was interviewed by the Chicago Times. Kenneth Arnold is not so certain that a strange contrivance were made on this planet. He said that he hoped that devices were really the work of the United States Army, but he told the Times in a phone conversation, if the government knows anything about these devices, the people should be told at once. A lot of people out here are very much disturbed. Some think these things may be from another planet, but they aren't harming anyone, and I think it would be the wrong thing to shoot them down, even if it can be done. But their high rate of speed would completely wreck them. Arnold, in pointing to the possibility of these discs being from another world, said, regardless of their origin, they apparently were traveling at some reachable destination. Whoever controlled them, he said, obviously wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He said the discs were making turns so abruptly around the peaks that it would have been impossible for human pilots inside to have survived the pressure. So he thinks that they were controlled from elsewhere, regardless of whether it was Mars, Venus, or our own planet. In April of 1949, in a skeptical article in the Sunday Evening Post titled "What You Can Believe About Flying Saucers," Arnold was likewise quoted. Since my first observation and report of these so-called flying discs, I have spent a great deal of money and time thoroughly investigating the subject. There is no doubt in my mind but what these objects are aircraft of a strange design and material that is unknown to the civilization of this earth. And Mayor, I'll go ahead and let you take over your part.
All right. Here in New Hampshire, we have Barney and Betty Hill. They were the first people to ever say they were abducted by aliens in September 19th and 20th of 1961. Yep, 19th and 20th, 1961, at about 10:30 p.m., driving home from Vermont back to their home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They were coming back from a vacation at Niagara Falls. And around Cannon Mountain, Betty had seen a object in the sky originally she thought might have been a falling star or a comet, and then it all of a sudden it abruptly changed directions, went upwards, and was flying erratically. She kept an eye on it for quite a while as they were traveling. They got down into the through Francona and Notch and getting close to Lincoln, New Hampshire, when all of a sudden the object came towards them. Hovered about 200 feet above ground, about 800 feet away from them, and they came to a stop on the highway, on State Highway 3, which I've traveled that road many a time. Barney got his binoculars, and went walking out there to see if what it was. I was looking at the binoculars, and he could see there was a row of windows in the front. He saw 8 to 11 people in there. They were staring back at him. Several of them went towards a control panel on the back wall. There was a person that looked like a leader. Another person was looking at him and grinned at him. And then he heard in his head, "Stay right there." It scared him. He ran back to the car and they started driving. The UFO followed them for a while and then more or less kind of blocked their way without landing on the ground. Came down to about 80 feet above them and a couple hundred feet in front of them. And 2 wings came out on the UFO. Now, this, put up pictures. That's Barney and Betty Hill. Barney was a postal worker in Fort Smith. Betty was a civil rights activist, and they were both members of the NAACP. They were one of those unusual things in 1961 of interracial marriage. That's their dog Darcy, their dachshund. This is actually a placard that was put up near where the incident happened in New Hampshire. Let's see, what am I looking for there? Yeah, this is a drawing of what Barney had saw. Barney had drew this out. Well, while they were driving along, this thing came out in front of them, and then they started to like black out. The wings came out, and they don't know what happened from there, but they arrived to Portsmouth, New Hampshire about 7 hours later than they were supposed to. Well, when they got back to Portsmouth, they have no recollection what happened to the time. Their watches both stopped working. There's 2 round shiny spots on their car. And Barney noticed if you walked near it with a compass, the compass would start spinning around like crazy. But if you back away from it, the compass would work normal again. Betty's clothes that she had worn that night were torn, and it had a pink dust on it. A couple weeks after the entire incident, Betty Betty had started having dreams for 5 nights in a row and recalling more and more stuff. She recalled them taking them into the spaceship, talking to them, but they actually didn't talk to them. They were communicating telepathically, which neither of them even knew what that word was. Reading science here. Betty had these dreams and all that. She got probed, but it was a probe that was put in through her belly button.
I would much rather that than.
Yeah. I get enough of that with my doctor being my age. They reported it to the Air Force, in fact, and Project Blue Book started interviewing them. They went through a 6-hour interview. They had drawn several pictures, such as this one. This is when they first saw it. There was a red light on each side, and then, oops, let me get rid of that. And then there was these 2 wings that came out that had the red lights on it. That's just before they were taking it. Don't bro me, bro. You bet. She recalled a bunch of stuff, and then after 5 days, she never had those dreams or anything again. Barney didn't believe it for a long time. Well, they were at their church, and there was a U.S. Air Force officer there giving a speech about something, about hypnosis, actually. So they talked to the officer, and the officer said that he didn't feel good hypnotizing them to try to bring out any regressed experience or anything, and that should be checked out by a professional, which they did. Under hypnosis, more story came out about what they were wearing. The aliens were wearing black, shiny clothes, had hats on, about being probed. They never felt scared the entire time they were there, and they didn't have any recollection. And Barney wanted to forget about the whole thing until after the entire hypnosis thing, because he didn't believe it. Betty drew a picture. In fact, it's a star map that they had told her about and explained and all that, or she had saw. This is the star map that she had drawn. And then some astrologers, yeah, the guys that look at stars, they found this is the area. Let's see, I got it in my notes here. Is Zeta Recolli? They call it the Zeta Recolli incident. It's an area about 39 light years away from Earth, and the star arrangement exactly matched what Betty had drawn out. Let's see. And Barney had drawn a picture of aliens. They had like a wraparound eyes. They were gray. They had no noses. These are some other drawings that some other professional had drawn from their description. And there was other instances later on, in fact, of people that described pretty much the same type being. Now, they never said anything about this to the public at all from 1961 to 1966. In 1966, some information got leaked out about this whole thing. They passed every lie detector they took, through the hypnosis, all the interviews. Nothing ever changed. Everything they said always stayed the same. For many, many years, nobody could really debunk anything. Not until they started picking it apart later on in the 90s and the 2000s, some of the things. In 1964, just before Barney had his first hypnosis treatment that brought out some of these research things, there was the show Twilight Zone and the show Outer Limits. And there was a couple of episodes that kind of match up to what they were saying about what the aliens look like and that. So there was always that little suspicion put in there. Barney died in 1969 of a cerebral hemorrhage. Betty lived on to 2004, in fact. And she was very big pioneer in the UFO investigation uh, field out there of amateurs and all that. But so much stuff that they said was had from other people that had experiences later on matched what they said, even though a lot of stuff that they did say later on was debunked. The entire incident was captured in a book called The Interrupted Journey, and also in the 1975 movie The UFO Incidents, which Interrupted Journey I think also was made into a movie too, talking about the entire story. Their story had been told on many television shows long after Barney passed away, and there's still, of all the information that was gathered from that and what they had said, there's still quite a bit of it that was never debunked. There had been so many other reports by not only from civilians out there, but from the military, police officers that have seen other strange things that were very much go hand in hand with what the Hills saw that night. There's other instances of people that have been abducted or had some kind of contact with aliens that said that, they talked to them in English or whatever language those people were using telepathy. Barney remembers hearing them talking, and it was in some kind of weird gibberish that he never heard before. But when they were actually speaking to him, it was in English, and it sounded more like it was coming from inside his head instead of actually hearing it. There is approximately, I think I looked it up, there's approximately 50 trillion galaxies in the universe that they have more or less been able to tell that there is. If you look at each galaxy has anywhere from 100 billion to 1 trillion possible stars that could possibly have more than one or more planets that could sustain life. And if you look at the actual breakdown of, if you took one billionth of 1% of how many stars out there could possibly have a planet that has some type of life on it, the number is one with 25,000 or 25 zeros after it. Who's to say there isn't a more advanced life form out there that could travel at the speed of light, that could, or even faster than the speed of light? Who's to say that life form on another planet someplace could be as simple as a single cell organism? That's still life. Or it could be extremely advanced. To me, even being a Christian and in the Bible saying that God created the heavens and earth, who's to say he didn't create several earths? And each earth might have took a different path, or when it was created, that they could have advanced more. And yes, our technology had advanced, say, from 1950 to today at such an astronomical rate. How do we know that a lot of our technology that we have is not an alien technology? It's just that Barney and Betty Hill had the first confirmed contact with an alien life form. it's one of those things that boggles the mind. How can we be so bolden to say we're the only life in this universe? You know, that is the most egotistical thing that anybody could ever say, that we're the only life. Yeah, and hey, how do you know that God could be, God could be an alien and we don't know who or what God is? Look at, what was it, Star Trek 4. You know, they were in the middle of a galaxy and God was there. But
See,
it
I
go ahead.
view it as, you know, being Christian, raised Christian, everything. You know, a lot of times you hear people say, "Oh, there's no aliens out there," but my thought about it is, what if, like, I sometimes view our world as a like a ant farm kind of thing. You know, God can see us, see what we're doing, and everything. But who's to say we're not the only ant farm?
Right.
You know, I mean, there's so many things out there that is not explained.
Perfect example in a movie, Men in Black. You know, they had that little planet that was in that thing that the cat was wearing around his neck.
Yes.
But there at the end, they open up the locker and we were just a little speck in a whole nother world.
Mhm.
You know, Antarctica is off limits. Too damn cold for anybody, including aliens.
Well, but I mean, I think that there is some stuff that they are hiding from us that they don't really want to share. And if you noticed, I mean, this kind of goes into a little bit of government conspiracy style stuff here, but how many years have we all been saying, I think there's aliens? And then the big C virus happens, 5 years ago, and all of a sudden it's aliens are real. And it's like, okay, so now you come out and say it. Well, we've been saying all along, but now you say it's real. So what are you trying to hide now? It's it's just crazy to me.
I have, there was an incident, I think I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, maybe, no, actually, probably 10 or 11 years old. Me and several friends, we were out playing baseball in the field next to another friend's house, and we saw something in the sky, and we had no idea of what it was. Nothing that we ever saw before. It wasn't moving very quick or anything. It wasn't an airplane, that's absolutely for sure. And my friend's dad actually came out and saw it. He had no clue what it was either. It was an object, it was flying, and it was identified. Well, that's a UFO. There's so many things out there that could be classified as a UFO, even though it comes from an earthly source, because we can't identify it. But there's other things out there that may not come from an earthly source. They might come from inner Earth. They might come from outer space. They may come from the neighbor's house down the street. We don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, I remember listening to the scanner one night. I think this was the late 70s. I had the scanner in my bedroom, and I was listening to the police channel and all that. And all of a sudden, there was a police officer said, "Hey, I'm out at, I don't even remember where, so and so, and there is something in the sky, and I can't identify it." And about 4 or 5 other cops around town said, "We see something too," and they tried to converge on it. They had the airport at the south side of town said they can't see anything on the radar, but they even see it.
Yeah.
They were never able to figure out what it was. But I'm listening to police officers going, "I don't know what it is."
Yeah.
So, it, it could be, who knows what's under the crust of our earth. There could be some kind of civilization that could live down there and they come out. It could have come from what ways away. It, there's somebody, some alien technology might know how to bend time. There's a book called A Wrinkle in Time.
Mm-hmm.
And it also goes in hand with Star Trek with warp. When they talk about warp, they're warping time. You got a flat plane of time. What they're doing is they're actually warping it,
Yeah.
bringing 2 points together. So they're actually literally jumping, but it's as a rolling warp.
Yeah.
Warp warp 1, warp 2 would have 2 warps, such and such. Wrinkle of Time was basically the same thing in that book, which I read I think I read that in like 6th or 7th grade. And it makes sense, especially when you put in context of something that we can understand as Star Trek with warp factor. Yeah, Carla, you read that book. It's a great old book. Who's to know that there isn't a technology that could actually do that? Maybe somebody can go plaid. I hope I live long enough that we can actually make a contact with aliens on a friendly way, not War of the Worlds type,
No.
where we can understand something like that.
Yeah. I think there's so much out there that is there that we've been kind of conditioned over all these years that it's not there. And
Thank you,
so
Mama.
and so I feel like there's a lot more out there.
Yeah. We it's like 98% of the ocean is unexplored. They don't know what's there.
Yeah.
Well, you look at outer space, even though they've seen so far into the universe, the such a vast distance and all that, but they can't really see what's there. We've only seen probably 1 trillionth of 1 trillionth of 1 trillionth% of what's out there. We don't know what's there. And who's to say there isn't somebody studying us? We're out there studying space, but maybe space is studying us.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, maybe that other little ant farm over there is a lot more advanced than us. And they're coming back to look at us going, huh, yeah. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. UFOs is something that I've studied since I was a kid. Dating back, actually, one of the first books I ever read was the Interrupted Journey about Barney and Betty Hill. That's one of the first ones I ever read on UFOs. Especially in school, I studied that a lot. It was like that's one of the things that really interested me in what would be considered the sci-fi world.
Yeah.
That sci-fi world, more and more, especially since I was a kid a billion years ago, has become from science fiction to more science fact.
Mm-hmm.
We have developed technologies that 50 years ago wasn't even thought of.
No.
Everything from metallurgy to propulsion systems to just understanding the atom. Wait, don't know what's in the ocean? I'm telling this water. Water and fishes that might want to eat you.
Hell yeah.
Hey, we got a Creed and Mikey. How you guys doing? But we get Mikey. We have the After Dark at 8 o'clock, correct? The Logger Story is the biggest when I grew up. The Logger Story. I'll have to check into that one. I don't think I know that one. But you know, we're going to be doing definitely other casts on the oddcasts on the on UFOs, because it's one of those subjects that there's so much information out there, so much mythology on there, so much factual on there. You know, we haven't even touched Roswell yet.
No.
I really do
I just
think
knew that if we were to cover everything in one episode, we'd
be here for months.
Yes. And I occasionally like to have a little nap or two, so it wasn't going to work doing all of it at one time. And then we'd miss the After Dark, so, and that would not have been.
Yeah. No, we got to have the After Dark. So we're going to be signing off here. We want to be able to get relaxed and, you know.
I'm probably going to feed my kids real quick. Well, one of my kids. The other one decided to go to his friend's house when I told him that he was going to have to stay silent for an hour. And then he was deciding he wanted to go to his friend's house. So, you know, that's okay. Then I only have to feed one kid.
All right, so we're going to sign off here so we can go over to Credence and Mikey and have some laughs and some fun. I hope you enjoyed the podcast tonight. We love you, and remember to keep it weird.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
Come on.